In today's episode of the Pathfunk Presents podcast, I have an interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Michelle Zelena, and she's been in the world of marketing and digital marketing for quite a while. Has been building up agencies, and today we want to talk about Appreciate. Appreciate is a fashion tech startup that is being supported by Michelle as a lead in marketing. And today we want to figure out what is Appreciate all about, what do they do, but also how is Michelle thinking about the growth for the company. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Michelle, give us a quick 360 overview. What is Appreciate all about? Where do people find it that haven't heard about it? Maybe give us that bird's eye perspective.
Sure. Our website is actually www.appreciate.it. Appreciate, it's a digital wallet for your luxury goods. We're at the intersection of fashion and Web3. We're elevating ownership, reducing waste, and building something meaningful. We connect brands, partners, items, and owners, creating a network that optimizes for ownership utility, mindful consumerism, and community engagement.
That is a very succinct and clear description. Who would you say is the typical user? Who is sort of, benefiting most from what you guys are offering?
Sure. So our app benefits luxury goods owners first. So anyone who's owning a luxury watches, bags, shoes. We also, as well as brands and platforms that work with luxury goods. Anyone who's providing repairs for luxury goods, insurance, and much more.
Very good. Now, what would you say? How do these folks learn about Appreciate? Like, what's their journey looking like? And obviously, since you're building out, the function as well, what do you have in mind? Like, what would be sort of a feasible, good, and relevant journey for somebody? What are the channels that you, in other words, are excited about as a marketer for Appreciate?
So right now, people are finding us through our socials mostly, our personal networks, our blog articles, our community events, and through organic press. That's because we're relatively new, and soon we'll be launching digital campaigns as well.
Very cool. Now, how do you think about the website? Like, what role do you think the website plays? Because obviously the concept is, it requires a bit of explanation, right? People have to figure out what it actually is, what it does, how it will help them. How do you think about the website? What's the role of the page in your perspective?
The website is a huge piece because it's all about education. So if you go over to our website, you'll see all of the different features that we currently offer in our app, as well as what's coming soon. So the app is constantly evolving, and the website completely encapsulates that.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. So now, when you, as a marketer, pick up a product that requires a bit of explanation, when you look at the website, like, what have you learned over the years when it comes to actually generating or creating, converting websites? Any tools, launches, updates, features, anything that you've picked up and learned over the years that you feel, makes a difference, or where you've, been surprised maybe about the effect?
I always recommend the easiest user onboarding journey as possible. So the less clicks, the less forms that need to be filled out, the better. I find that a lot of times conversion rate is much easier to increase when it's not there's not a huge barrier to entry.
That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, on the podcast show, just bringing that up, I mean, because that recently has been appearing a little bit, people were, or marketers, starting to think and talk more about the cookieless future. Do you see that in your realm of marketers? Is that the topic people talk about already? What they're going to do? Or is that a topic that is a little bit sort of on the back burner at the minute? What's your perception on that?
Absolutely. I think everyone's worried about it, but sort of a buzzword that everyone's been talking about is community. I think it's true. I think, building people who actually subscribe to your newsletter, building a place where people can interact and communicate, can reach out to our founder. We make it super easy for the consumer to reach out personally to our founder and give us all feedback constantly. So I feel when you build that community or that direct one-on-one kind of interaction, it doesn't matter as much if we're living in a cookieless world, just because you have direct access to the people when they're really interested in your product.
Makes a lot of sense. So now we spoke about what you guys are doing. We talked about the channels a little bit, and also you guys dealing with obviously changes when it comes to the channels. What I'm curious about now is to learn a little bit more about yourself and your journey as a marketer. There's so much content for marketers out there, right? And you could read probably your life long and 10 versions of your life reading marketing advice, content, blogs, case studies. Where do you personally like to educate yourself? Like, what's your go-to resources with all the noise out there?
I I mean, I would say it depends. 10 years ago, I was always looking at blogs like Search Engine Land. But now I've entered, fashion tech. We're a bit of, a crypto company related as well. So I do look at Discord channels, and there are communities of marketers that are just focused on Web3 marketing. So Discord. I also still get really inspired by Instagram and following other heads of marketing or marketing agencies. I love to see what they're posting about. So I kind of get inspiration almost everywhere now.
You mentioned actually the Web3 angle there. Like obviously, how do you see that as a marketer? Is there now, once you start getting into that world, and it seems your product sort of touches somehow both sides of the web. Do you need to do something different now that your product is in that sphere, or do old strategies, content, SEO and the likes, do they still hold true? Or do you have to deep dive into the discourse in this world and that sort of more diversified, not indexed in a world of Web3? Like, how do you think about that as a marketer?
So I think yes and no. I think yes, there are specific Web3 strategies. There are browsers like Brave, it's the equivalent of Google, but for people who are very focused on Web3. But I personally don't think that your strategy should be super different just because you're incorporating Web3 technology. I would say the mass market and most people are still using Web2 technology. Most people still use Google. They're still using Instagram and Facebook. I think, over time, these platforms will change into something more Web3 and something that we all are part of versus, Web2, where somebody else owns these platforms. But I think in terms of marketing right now, people are still on these Web2 platforms. And if we're trying to reach them, I think it's still the move to, use Web2 technology and keep an eye out for these new browsers and these new programmatic display options that are geared towards Web3 people. But Web3 people are still the minority, I would say, of the mass market.
That makes a lot of sense. I have some rapid fire questions to get to know you and the journey a little bit better to wrap it up for today. Are you ready for those?
Sure.
What's the last book that you read or the last podcast you listened to?
I'm listening. I'm reading Cold Start Problem.
Mhm.
It's actually a book that everyone at our company got, and it's very interesting.
Mhm. What's one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
That's difficult. I mean, me specifically with marketing is getting, some of our events for fall off the ground, but the company as a whole would be releasing new features.
If there would be no boundaries in tech, you have a magic wand. What's the one thing that you would fix for your role as a marketer today?
Oh, that's a hard one. Making it easier to design things so I didn't have to rely so much on other people who are experts in design and take up their bandwidth. If I could just do it myself, I would love to be able to create things more easily myself.
And what's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
Different new ideas on how to reach luxury goods consumers.
And for the very last question, right? If we go back to your sort of very first marketing gig that you joined, the very first time you got in touch with that position. Now, looking back, what's the one advice that you would give yourself as for your journey as a marketer?
To pursue the things that interested me most sooner. In the beginning I was doing insurance and finance clients, which was great for learning, but I waited a solid 4 or 5 years before I dove into fashion and beauty clients. So I wish I got into it a little bit sooner.
Very cool. Michelle, I really appreciate that you took the time with us today to be a guest on Pathmark Presents. I want to give you the very last word, right? If people would be forgetting all that we discussed about appreciate today, what's the one thing that they should remember?
Okay, they should remember that we appreciate luxury fashion in Web3 and to download our app to experience the future of ownership. And you can find it at applestore.appreciate.it.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathmark Presents.
Thank you.